everyone. For the last month, the channel has been sponsored by the NEC Classic Cars Show presented by Lancaster with Discovery, which is taking place this November in the UK. And you may have seen their logo in a number of videos. Well, today I am driving what could be considered the ultimate classic car. One of those real jack-of-all-trades cars, but that I think is perhaps why it's quite so brilliant. It's also, and I know this is a very controversial thing to say, a car that I've never actually been that fussed about. I completely understand and respect the massive importance of the Golf GTI, both today and always, but it's just never a car that's really set my pulse racing. Maybe it's just because I'm really not a hatchback person. However, when this car's owner got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to drive his lovely looking Mk1, I of course was not going to say no. This is a very important car. Now, I'm a very lucky chap, you see, because I get to drive on a near daily basis unusual and interesting machinery, some of which people will wait a lifetime to basically never drive. And I often find sort of interesting little factoids and things that perhaps you wouldn't expect. As an example, I now know that there is a connection, albeit a tenuous one, between this and a Jaguar XJ220. Now, that I certainly didn't expect. What is that connection? Well, both of them were projects undertaken almost in secret, which have since gone on to become legends. The Jaguar perhaps legendary for its failure, but the Golf legendary for its enduring popularity. Now, let me set the scene for you. It's the early 1970s. VW are doing extremely well, although they are not the powerhouse that they are today. The Beetle is sort of being phased out, although of course we all know that it went on for another 30 plus years, but in the 1970s it was already an old car, and Volkswagen wanted something more new, more hip, more of the time. They introduced the Golf. The one thing, however, that they were absolutely not fussed about doing was a hot version. They tried that with the Beetle, the GSR, and for whatever reason, apparently it just didn't do that well, and the company were very reluctant to try anything along that line again. However, there were a few rebel spirits within the company, shall we say, that thought that that would be a bit of a shame. And so they set about in secret, a small team of 8 and later 9 people, and developing what we now know as the Golf GTI. They presented it to the management. The management decided, okay, maybe there's something in this, and they authorized it to go into production. Originally, they thought that they'd maybe sell about 5,000 of them or so. That was enough to homologate the car for touring cars at the time. Well, 462,000 cars later, and an icon was born. This was not the first hot hatch. I suppose you could give that accolade to any number of other cars, including some really weird stuff like the old Simca. But there is no arguing that this is the definitive hot hatch. Very simple recipe, really. Just take an existing hatchback and just make it a little bit sportier, a little bit cooler in every way. By modern standards, the specifications aren't hugely impressive, but back in the 1970s, I suspect they probably were. You see, the 110 horsepower that you get out of this 1.6 litre petrol engine is actually what you get out of a sort of normal cooking engine today. But back then, a 1600cc Capri would only have given you about 70 horsepower. There's just over 100 pound-foot of torque, but it's pushing along a body which weighs very, very little. This particular car is a 1981 model, so the important things to note about that are the fact it's one of the last of the 1.6s. They later grew to a 1.8, although it should be said that 1.8 doesn't really have any more power, but it does have a little bit more torque, presumably a fair bit lower down. More usefully, this also has a 5-speed gearbox, which is actually pretty nice to use. makes a beautiful sound too. And the car was always fuel injected as well, apparently a requirement of one of the bosses who drove the original carburetted version and said it was just too noisy and too harsh and too unrefined for a Golf. And so fuel injection went on, which made it more economical, more powerful, and a little bit quieter. This example, as you can probably tell, is not entirely standard. It's running some pretty chunky wide wheels, it's got coilovers on it, and it's got a custom exhaust, which sounds oh so delightful. It's not quite as antisocially loud as it looks, and thanks to this being an old school cable throttle car, you can heel and toe, you can play with it, and it's just making me quite happy, really, I have to say that. The steering's not perfect, there's a little bit of slop in it, which you can feel on the dead ahead, so maybe there's something on in the system here, but maybe that's the way they are, I don't know, never driven an old one. But it's just good fun, really. I don't want to throw it around too much, mostly because in this particular car the suspension needs just a little bit of tweaking to play well with those much wider tyres, but that is just a tweak, that's not really a big issue. And here's why I think the Golf in Mark 1 guys, or indeed perhaps any guys, would make the ultimate classic car. It is genuinely all things to all people, and that is really what a hatchback should always be, but with this of course you have that added classic angle. So let's just say you're a classic car fan and you want something to enjoy and use. You can have one of these. Let's say you want to have a classic daily, so you need something that's still a little bit practical, is going to be reasonable to run, is not going to be ruinous in any way, can be maintained by a whole heap of places with good parts availability at low prices. Get one of these. But if you want something that's still special enough that it'll get people talking about it and it'll stand out a bit in a car park, get one of these. You don't see these all that often despite how many were made. I'm sure there's plenty around, but actually seeing them on the road is a real treat. There's at least one VW dealer that I know that still keeps a Mark II in the showroom just because it looks so nice. We're not actually sure whether it was ever sold or not, but it looks lovely. And if you enjoy driving, this does give you a great driving experience. Just doing things like that, listening to the noise of it, it's got a mechanical interaction with it that I am afraid is generally lacking in the later cars. The great thing as well that with something like this, if you're a classic car enthusiast, perhaps on a budget, perhaps with a family, you're not being especially selfish. There is room in the bag for people. There is room in the boot for your stuff. It is raining now, which is rather annoying, but I'm not terrified in the way that I would have been if it started raining when I drove that Jaguar yesterday. It just is the car to get things done. I mean, I can see why they sold quite so many of them, and in fact, I really have forgotten almost entirely that this car is the best part of 40 years old, because it doesn't feel it. I've driven quite a few cars from this time period, and let's be honest, this is a 70s car, really. You know, in design, it is a 70s car, and very few of them would I be quite so happy to sort of bimble down this road at modern car speed. Now, if you're enjoying this video, I would remind everybody that I got that little tie-in with the Classic Cars Show. There is a special link in the description below, so if you want to win yourself a little Meguiar's cleaning kit, please do sign up for the show using my special code. All the details are below, and hopefully you'll see me there, or at the very least you're going to see a really nice bunch of classic cars too. This car's main concession to modern living is the fitment of a modern CD player with Bluetooth, and as far as I'm concerned, that gives you essentially all you need to survive in the modern world. Air conditioning would have been lovely, but hey ho, you can't have everything. I know plenty of modern cars where people have decided to delete it, you know, because race car, but in reality most of the time you just be driving with the windows down. I'm not today, because obviously I want you to be able to hear me a little bit better. It's not the quietest thing in here, not because of the engine or the exhaust, but simply because of the fact it's a small, thin, very lightweight car by modern standards. And if you are the sort of person that wants to customize their car, make it something unique, something special, well, you've got oodles of options for that. The dub scene is, well, pretty well established, and if you don't want to go down the usual route, there are plenty of aftermarket parts for them. That is the great benefit of having something that is a reasonably common car. You can make it something a little bit uncommon as well, because whatever you can imagine, someone's probably made already. I mean, really, for me, the victory today is the fact that actually I'm enjoying driving this. I mean, really, properly enjoying it. Oh, this weather! Ah! You know, it was actually properly sunny earlier. I got my sunglasses on. Look, see? Sunglasses were packed. Hey, such is the life of British YouTubers. But the main thing today is the Golf GTI good. Yes. Is it great? Yeah, actually, it really, really is. Windscreen wipers aren't brilliant, but they do work. So I'm kind of thankful for that. I'm thankful to you all for watching. Very thankful to this car's owner for bringing it up. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.